Well, first of all, I love the posture and the thought of gracism, because grace, we know, is to be just the divine power of God in order to change situations.
Yes.
And that's what we need, because racism is so foundational to this country. And people may not want to believe it, but it's true.
It's
it's true.
Yeah.
I mean, the founding fathers, they drafted the Constitution with the idea that a citizen of this country could not be a Black person. So that was the idea. But I say that because last summer I founded an organization called Faith and Prejudice, where our entire focus is equipping the church to confront and dismantle systemic racism in America. My reason for that is the church has to lead on this. We cannot stand back and hope the Democrats figure it out or the Republicans figure out, because statistically, 30% of Americans identify as Republican, 31% identify as Democrat, but 65% identify as Christian. More than both major political parties combined. So we're not going to change the hearts of Congress until we first change the heart of the church.
How about that?
It starts with us. We have to lead on this.
Prejudice, what is it?
Prejudice.
I love your definition on this, by the way.
So, and I can't take credit. It was a gentleman named Nathan Rutstein who said, prejudice is an emotional commitment to ignorance. And I think
Come on now.
Prejudice is an emotional commitment to ignorance.
Because we probably all have this.
Oh yeah.
But this idea of, I really don't care what the truth is.
I don't care.
I don't care what the facts are. I have an emotional commitment to ignorance.
Yeah. There's an emotional investment in ignorance. And this is why God compels us to forsake darkness. He compels us to forsake ignorance. He tells us the hidden work of shame. Like, don't allow yourself to yield and lean into that. Pursue wisdom. God is known as light. Jesus is known as the light of the world. Light and darkness cannot coexist, but darkness is ignorance. And so our organization, our entire focus is helping people walk in the light of God's truth and helping people break that emotional commitment to ignorance. But what it all gets back to, I think, honestly, as I talk to some of my white brothers and sisters, I think what it comes down to is when you talk about systemic racism, the reason why people say it's not real, it doesn't exist, is because if systemic racism existed, it would undermine the idea of white supremacy. Because white supremacy is based on the idea that white people are inherently and biologically superior to Black people, which means if that's true, then they shouldn't need help. They shouldn't need policies or systems or discriminatory policies. They shouldn't need any of that because they're just superior. So when you talk about systemic racism, the reason why people resist it is not because they resist the idea, it's because now you're attacking their identity. You're saying that they are not superior. You're saying that they are not biologically superior. And so I recognize
So how someone's
that.
confronted with that and they're like, no, I don't believe I'm biologically superior.
Right.
But yet they're still holding on to the fact that ideas of supremacy, but they don't really recognize it as supremacy.
Yeah.
How do you break that emotional commitment to ignorance?
So typically what I'll do is I'll say, okay, well, so we know that in the area of economics, right? So Black people tend to have $1 for every $10 of wealth that white people have. Why do you think that is? And then what they'll usually say is, well, probably just because they're not working as hard or whatever. I say, oh, okay, so you think that they're slothful. You think that Black people have a character of laziness, right? And it's like, well, no, I don't believe it. It's like, okay, then how would you explain that? Then you talk about health disparities, right? It's like, okay, so we know that Black people tend to have worse health outcomes than white people in every way. How would you explain that? And if you start to get into questions of genetic predispositions and all that, it's like, okay, so then in fact, you do believe that whites are biologically superior to Blacks. And then that's when they say, well, no, it's not what I believe. Okay, well, then you just said that. That's like, I'm telling you your own words. And so that's typically what we do. And once we have that conversation and people are forced to recognize, wait a minute, I do have white supremacist ideology within me. Now we can work on that. But you can't work on that until you won't admit it. Yeah.